Lately, I've been looking at Elden Ring running on previous gen graphics cards that people might still be gaming on during the shortage, like the GTX 970 and R9 290. However, some of you might not have a graphics card at all, and instead perhaps picked up an APU like the Ryzen 5 5600G, hoping its integrated Vega 7 graphics would be enough to carry you through until you can pick up a shiny new graphics card. Let's see how it fares. With integrated graphics, there's some ambiguity over settings. GPU core and DRAM speeds can make a big difference in performance, so in order to best represent what most people can be sure of getting from their 5600G, I went with stock GPU speeds and set my RAM to DDR4 3000. Bear in mind, you might see slightly different performance according to your own RAM speed. I also left my CPU overclocked, principally in the hope it will minimise the game's notorious stutter, but well, you'll see. Starting off conservatively, I went with 720 at the low preset. Averages were fine, but the frame time hammer came down hard on more than one occasion, leaving my 1% low score at only 1.2 FPS. By the time you watch this, hopefully either FromSoft will have issued a patch or AMD will have more optimised drivers to help resolve this stutter, but in the meantime it's a reality that everyone's going to face. I've heard of people with high-end Vega and RDNA graphics cards suffering the exact same issue. As I felt like maybe I had a little more room to spare, I tried pushing resolution up to 1600 by 900, again at the low preset. This time I had a relatively stutter-free run, but averages dropped to 35 regardless. The game gets harder to play as the FPS drops, as combat can be very reliant on good timing. Nevertheless, I pressed onwards. As if slow frame rates weren't enough to contend with, FromSoft had another trick up their sleeve at 1080 low. For whatever reason, enemies frequently vanished completely. I could lock onto them and see their shadows, but it was just like they'd activated a cloaking device. Tricky sons of bitches. Anyway, averages were 27 FPS, but this is clearly unplayable for reasons beyond frame rate. So, if you're not the adventurous sort, you can pretty much stop the video here. Thanks for making it this far. However, if you're interested in seeing just how good these APUs can be, I did try my hand at some overclocking. With the core overclocked by 500 MHz to 2.4 GHz and the RAM set to its DDR4 4000 XMP default, I started over. 720 low was, well, delightful from a performance perspective. Frames hovered around the high 50s, seeing 60 from time to time. 1% lows dropped into the high 40s, and I didn't see many stutters at all in the overclocked run. What, if anything, that means I can't be sure of, but I'm not going to dwell on it here. Back up to 900 low, and again things are pretty damn sweet. Averages are now in the high 40s and lows don't go below 30. For the best balance of detail and performance, this is probably the best all-round choice on the Vega 7. 1080 was borderline playable. On the plus side, enemies could now be seen at all times. No funny business with the deathly halos this time, but FPS averages only in the low 30s and frequently drops below 30. Still, I was quite pleasantly surprised at this jump in performance from a painless overclock, so I went back and tried one more run at medium quality. This time 720 barely averages over 50 FPS, which is just dandy if you grew up in a PAL region. 900 medium lingers around the 40 FPS mark and still doesn't drop below 30, though of course that all depends on whether the game starts stuttering or not. 1080 isn't really playable here. The average is 30 give or take, and lows are a cinematic 24 FPS. On the plus side, once more, fully visible enemies. Never thought that would be a plus point, but here we are. The bar is just that low. If you have confidence in your ability to overclock, I think you should definitely look into it, as Elden Ring clearly benefits hugely here. Hopefully the near future will bring some development from both FromSoft and AMD that will improve performance. If you were hoping to get a little more quality at lower settings, AMD's promised RSR feature should enable FSR-like upscaling in all games regardless of compatibility, and I feel like 1080 medium with FSR quality could be a real sweet spot on this setup. Hope that was helpful, thanks for watching, kindly do the usual YouTube things if you feel so inclined, and I'll see you next time.